Hello, everybody. Hope we are doing well today. I'm doing something extraordinary today because I'm tired of seeing these mistakes happening over and again. Today, we are going to talk about the accounting equation. Today, I had to take that extra step. I don't know if this is visible enough to you. I don't know, I'm trying to enlarge it. I don't know if it is visible enough to you, but I had to go ahead and write this by myself. We are going to understand and we are going to resolve issues around journal entries or journal vouchers, what we normally call the JVs when we abbreviate. So we are going to talk about this and we are going to solve this once and for all. I've seen one problem. All the time you find errors in journal entries, they are originating from this point. They are all coming from this point, not knowing which account to credit or debit. And let me tell you, there are errors you will never find. If you make an error in entry, what we call an error of original entry, once an information is wrongly entered in the system, you may not capture this error. Even the trial balance may not tell you. Last time I told you about errors of omission, commission, errors of posting, errors of original entry, errors of principal, and I've just seen that this keeps happening all the time. I look at reports, all the time I audit, all the time I review financials, I keep finding these errors. So today I took a pen, a piece of paper, and a marker highlighter to do this physically by myself, to write this, to discuss it for once and for all. You'll find this video always. So let's start by understanding the accounting equation. We have what we call assets. These are things we own. And you have what we call liabilities. These are things we owe. And you have what we call equity. This is what we put in as our capital or contribution towards the business. Now, there are things you should know. My focus here is on the journal entries and is on journal vouchers, JVs, to know when to debit and when to credit. Let's start by understanding how do these accounts behave. I have a simple formula for you here. I don't know if you are able to see it clearly. Let me try to zoom in. Zoom out. All right. I have a simple formula for you here. I said ADE plus CRL minus. Here, what do I mean? ADE, I mean assets, I mean drawings or distribution, then I mean expenses. Then, when I said CRL minus, C I meant capital, R I meant revenue or sales, then L is liabilities. Now, this helps us to understand which account you're dealing with and what is the likely treatment of that particular account. For example, if you're dealing with the assets, whether they are current or non-current, you're going to add them, increase them. Assets increased by debiting, by adding, meaning anything you're dealing with when it comes to journal entries, if it is about an asset, the default position is adding, debiting, increasing by debiting, unless we are disposing or we are dealing with depreciation. That is something advanced we shall talk about some other day. Today I'm interested in telling you which accounts are going to be increased by debiting and which other accounts are going to be increased by crediting. So when you look at drawings or distributions, this is the money, or let me say items, depending on the nature of business, that the business owner withdraws from the business. And once that happens, that account of distribution or owner's drawings increase by debiting. Lastly, expenses here on this side. Expenses also increase by debiting. That's why we have rent, utilities, transport, name it. Expenses all increase by debiting. Now there is a challenge here when it comes to expenses, where there is what we call accrued or prepaid expenses. We shall learn further in future that some expenses can be accrued that can turn into a liability, or can be prepaid that can turn into an asset, a current or non-current. We shall come to understand this at some point. Our focus today is to know which account increases by what. I'm solving journal entry problems where someone passes a JV and again causes more trouble. So on the other side, we have what we call capital, revenue, liabilities. These things increase by crediting. For example, capital. If we contribute more money into the business, this money is going to increase by crediting. So when I'm passing my journal entry or JV, I'll say credit capital, debit the source. Is it coming from owner's contribution? Is it coming from a loan or what? We shall always credit. We shall always increase capital by crediting. Then let's talk about revenue. Revenue or sales, name it. It also increases by crediting. When we make sales, whether they are cash sales, credit sales, name it, they increase by crediting. Therefore, we shall always increase credit revenue. Then we shall always debit something depending on the method of payment. Was it cash? Was it a credit sale? Are we going to have a receivable here? So that is what we mean by increasing by crediting. So let's talk about liabilities. Liabilities, whether they are current or non-current, the default position is they increase by crediting. So liabilities, that's why we have loans. That's why we have accounts payables. That's why we have mortgages. That's why we have where we owe. That's where we have the liabilities. And now those increase by crediting. The reason I did this today is because I've been seeing continuous repeated mistakes, especially with the juniors, when they are just starting practicing or when they are just doing the internship. They have issues with this. Even when you tell them how to treat that particular transaction, they will treat that one. Then tomorrow you'll find other issues with the other journal entries. That's why today we had to have this kind of a short lesson. Which accounts increase by debiting and which accounts increase by crediting. I have a simple formula. That's why I said add a plus. If it is an asset, if it is drawing an expense, that is the default position. Then if it is a capital liability or revenue, that is the default position, increases by crediting. So there are so many other challenges or changes you may find depending on the nature or specification of the transaction. But for today's case, this is it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.